What's up, y'all? It is Tasha. I am back with another review of Married at First Sight. While last week didn't give us anything really to talk about, baby, the episode this week, that's why they could have just kept last week on the cut room floor. We really did not need to get that episode. They could have jumped right into this episode that we saw tonight. Okay, honey? So before I jump into everything, welcome to my channel. Please hit the like button. Please comment below and please subscribe if you are not already subscribed. If you are new, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Y'all know how we get down around here, okay, with Married at First Sight. So we are going to jump right in because I have a lot of notes. So I'm probably going to be looking down at my computer a lot more than usual just because I want to make sure I'm getting everything as correct as I remember in my notes. So just bear with me this time, but we're going to get into it as we get into it because it is just, girl, a whole lot, okay? So season 14, episode 13. This episode, we see Dr. Pepper and Pastor Cal meeting with all the couples individually to assess the marriage. And I really was excited at this moment because I cannot wait until Dr. Pepper gets in Olajuwon's behind. And at this moment, because I hadn't seen the episode, I was like, if she don't, I'm going to be real upset, okay? So we are 17 days from decision day. The episode opens with Jasmina telling us, she feels really good about her marriage. And it feels amazing because they are both on the same page finally. They made a promise to both give 100%. Then we see Noe saying that it's been hard for them to communicate effectively. And in order for her to make the right decision, they need to be honest about what they want. Maybe more so the communicating effectively on her end than his end. Mark says it's been a difficult week to navigate a healthy relationship in their marriage. And I'm just like, y'all continue to go through it every other day. Y'all relationship is so hot and cold. It is exhausting for us as the viewers. I can imagine how exhausting it is for you guys living it. So we on day 39 of marriage and Katina and Olajuwon are going to the grocery store together for the first time. And I'm like, so what y'all been doing all this time? She just been responsible for going to the grocery store and he just been, letting her get whatever when I thought, doesn't he work nights? So why he can't go to the grocery store during the day? I'm confused. He tells us that he works hard and he can hold down the home, but he has to guide her at the grocery store, but she comes home with stuff he does not eat. Well, sir, did you tell her what it is that you want to eat or just that you just want her, in the kitchen cooking? Don't matter what it is, just as long as you're cooking. Or do you expect her to just be a mind reader and know whatever it is that you want her to buy from the grocery store? It's been 39 days. Huh? Are we communicating? Probably not. Anyway, we know that Katina cannot cook. She has never really hidden that fact of she is a takeout, order out restaurant type of girl. And I'm just like, he just keeps pushing the fact about her cooking and really instead of making it a welcoming environment where he might say, well, I know this recipe we can cook together, or we can buy a recipe book and maybe try one new recipe a week that we can cook together. Like, at least try to make it somewhat engaging and not as if it is her duty as a wife to cook for you. Okay. So we see Lindsey and Mark, they are still arguing, child, but what is new at this point? She's still asking for consistency with him and she just feels completely drained. Mark says he has told her his needs, which is he needs her to communicate in a healthy way, and the way she speaks to him is not healthy. He says the last 5 weeks with her have been tough and they just replay the argument from last week that had carried over from the previous day. She says she is tired of being the only person that shows up. And I am like, Lindsey, can we stop it? Lindsey is constantly in the victim mentality. Like, she always thinks everything is happening to me. Like, she talks about Mark not taking any responsibility, but she hardly takes any responsibility for her behavior. She always blames her behavior on the way somebody else has reacted or what somebody else has said, which has now caused her to react a certain way, as if she's not a grown woman that should be in control of her own emotions and be mature enough to be able to handle people saying or doing things to her and still have a mature reaction to it. Lindsey, you are not always the victim. You need to get that victim mentality out of here. But she cries, and then of course she expects some sympathy because she thinks if I turn on the waterworks, then people will feel sorry for me. I don't. she just can't really admit that her communication sucks. And I'm not sure how she can't admit that when we learned that from her family from day one. So if her family knows that, she has to know that. It's not something you're just now finding out because you're now married. Anyway, she asked him, when is he going to bring positivity? And he said, we have to equally really try, because, I do some things that bother you. You do some things that bother me. And if we can't figure this out, then it just won't work. She then asked him, but what is he going to do for her? And I'm like, I feel like he continues to try to meet her halfway, as far as he takes a bit before he starts to elevate with her. It's like, even in this very conversation, you can see he keep his composure for the most part. And then it's like when he can't hold it in any longer, he then elevates and gets to her level, which of course just makes her go higher. And then he goes high, and it's just a vicious cycle that just continues to get worse. So he keeps his cool for as long as he can. And then when he's can't any longer, he starts arguing with her, and he's like, well, our communication is just different. You sometimes get up and say, you're gonna leave, and then she's like, do you want me to leave? 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 And I'm like, if that man would have said for you to leave, you would have been flipping everything over in that doggone kitchen, because she's the type of person that she asks those type of questions, but she really doesn't want the truthful answer of, it could potentially be yes if you're going to ask the question. She wants somebody to say no, and then she's going to be like, well, then what are you going to do to keep me here? That's what her next response is going to be. And it's like, Mark should have just said, yeah, leave, and see what she's going to do next. She says that he doesn't value her, care for her, show up for her. And I'm like, Lindsey, child, you just cannot see beyond yourself now, can you? You need just as much improvement as Mark does, if not more. Okay. I think Mark may have been sending mixed signals. I feel like in the beginning, honestly, they haven't told us whether or not they've still been intimate this time. But I feel like at least for the past week or two, or maybe even longer, I don't feel like they have been intimate with each other. For one, she hasn't really brought it up, and we all know how she is with her mouth. And for two, I think Mark, truly, his emotions and feelings are all over the place, that I don't even think he probably wants to take it there with her anymore, because it is just so hot and cold that it's exhausting. But now we're seeing everybody meet with the experts. Noy's first. She meets with Pastor Cal and says that she thinks they are doing wonderful. And I'm like, I guess the term Joseing is just going to stick around season after season, because here she goes Joseing as soon as she starts talking to Pastor Cal. Steve meets with Dr. Pepper, and she wants to find out what questions he still has before decision day. Pastor Cal asks about the social media posting with Noy, and he tells her that it could cause a world of hurt if you don't communicate about what you are posting. Steve tells Dr. Pepper about the social media post and told her that he has asked Noy not to do that, and we have seen that, and I don't think that's too much of a compromise. I think, of course, you can still be your own individual, your own person, being in a marriage, but I think when you start sending those subliminal messages out to the public like that, it does not necessarily matter at that point how you intended for it to go off, because they will interpret it however they feel. And I'm sorry, but when you're in a marriage and a relationship, and then you start posting things about, the minute you feel like you can do better, you probably can't. Everybody is going to think that's about your spouse, Noy. Like, it's just, it's just what it is. And I don't see how you can't put two and two together to think that maybe this isn't, even if it's about, my best friend, my dog, my parent, my long lost cat. It doesn't matter what you think in your head. Outwardly showing, if you post something like that when you're in a very new marriage to a stranger, everybody is going to think it's about your husband. Girl, cut it out. Anyway, he says that she has broken a boundary that he has set for them, and Dr. Pepper agrees that Noy needs to talk to him and not go to social media with her problems. I think we can all agree. Pastor Cal asks Noy what she needs to talk to him about without worry, and she says finances, of course. And she wants to know, basically, can he get a job? Can he hold down a job? Because, of course, she hasn't seen any of that in the 4 or 5 weeks they've now been together. She says she has a fear that she hasn't expressed this to him because she needs to feel secure in that area. But of course, we know Noe, she's avoided. She has not asked him these questions either. And I'm just like, you know what? Because IG is your thing, just put it out on IG. Steve will see it, and then he'll answer these questions or whatever you have about his finances. Pastor Cal tells her to ask him how he can make her feel financially secure, because that is really what she needs as a part of feeling love based on how she grew up. Dr. Pepper tells Steve that he hasn't taken a job, which that's a cause of fear for Noe because Noe needs the stability. And then asking if they can work on their issues outside of social media. Steve keeps making excuses about the whole job thing and says, that wasn't his vision. And I think he needs to also understand, well, her potentially being the breadwinner and not having a significant other that has a steady job wasn't her vision either. So it sounds like between the two of them that this is truly a deal breaker on both ends based on how passionately they both feel about Steve potentially, I guess, just being an entrepreneur or living off his savings or being a nomad or whatever it is he wants to do with his life, and Noe wanting somebody that clocks in and out. And quite frankly, to me, this is easy. If neither one of y'all want to bend on what you want, you don't need to be together because neither one of y'all are going to change. So why continue to be upset or ask questions about it or get frustrated about it if nobody's going to change? Just walk away. Okay. 16 days until decision day. Next up, we see Katina and Olajuwon, and Katina is meeting with Pastor Cal and Olajuwon with Dr. Pepper. And I'm ready for this, okay? But Katina says, I ain't really ready to talk to the experts because, they be wanting us to talk about our feelings and stuff. And it just be too much. Girl, because you don't want to look reality in the eye and knowing that Olajuwon ain't worth ish, okay? That's really what the problem is. So she tells Pastor Cal that marriage is good, but they get into it just like any other couple. She tells him about the whole dating app debacle. And Pastor Cal tells her that they were kept informed. So basically, they know how Olajuwon showed his ass during this moment. Pastor Cal tells her to ask him about his triggers to find out why he reacts the way he does. And I'm like, his trigger is when things don't go his way. He acts just like a toddler who couldn't get their fruit snacks. Pastor Cal asks how she feels about their intimacy, and she says that they are attracted to each other. And he's like, I don't want no details. But then he's like, well, how do you know y'all are attracted to each other? And she's like, I thought you didn't want no details, Pastor Cal. But she basically just says he kind of gives her some booty smacks and kisses. And, she knows that he's feeling her. But she does not want to get the other word for the male private part. She don't want to get that dizzy. And I'm like, what is ick dizzy? Like, y'all know what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to say, what is ick dizzy? Like, ickmatized? Is that what you're trying to say, Katina? Girl, get out of here. She is just sitting here acting like if he wouldn't offer it up, like she wouldn't take it. She's just trying to find whatever she can to align of what he says as to why they're not being intimate and just trying to make it make sense. But okay, girl. She says that she has doubts about their relationship because she's just used to relationships ending for whatever reason. So she is guarding her heart. Pastor Cal says you're acting in a single mindset and not a married mindset. And I'm like, no, you are acting in a sane person mindset, somewhat dealing with Olajuwon because you know how this food can just flip in and out at any moment. So yeah, keep guarding your heart, girls. That's a smart thing to do. Dr. Pepper tells Olajuwon that she's been getting communication about him and his harsh communication. She asks him what he needs to make a decision on decision day. He says that they're doing well and they have so much in common. They're just so comfortable with each other. Like they just care for each other so much. So basically he is now Joseing as well. He says he just wants, her to keep being herself, keep being vulnerable, keep being secure, give her own opinions. He doesn't need her to always agree or align with whatever he is saying. But, just stand on whatever her position is. And I'm like, okay. He then tells Dr. Pepper about the dating app. And I'm just like, but of course you ain't gonna tell her how you showed out. But I'm sure she's already seen that. She says it really upset her the way he approached her at the dinner with the other couples at the table. So she asks how he talks to her, because she gets the impression that he talks down to her. Olajuwon says he does not talk down to her or belittle her, but he can be stern, and he did apologize to her for the whole dinner debacle. Dr. Pepper calls him out on all the things that, he has said to her about, he being more mature than her, her just not having no life skills. And he then says that Dr. Pepper is trying to make him look like the bad guy. And he feels that if, she feels that way, she just needs to say no on decision day. Hit dog will always holler, because Dr. Pepper did not say that Katina said these things. She just said that you have said these things, which we have all seen on the camera is indeed actual factual. So therefore, there's no need of you getting upset with things that we can clearly just roll back the tape on and hear those same words coming out of your mouth, Olajuwon. We didn't just make it up. I'm just like, he's the typical gaslighter of when you then remind him of the BS that he says, he then gets upset and is wondering where the heck does this information come from? You. It came from you. Okay? O is just saying it's basically a spit in his face, and Dr. Pepper is saying, it's on the tape, sir, okay? He says that she is really talking about week 1 or week 2 stuff, but now things are different. He keeps saying he takes full responsibility of everything, and I'm just like, but Olajuwon, that doesn't mean anything if you're not actually changing the behavior. Yes, I can take full responsibility that I talked harsh to you and I belittled you, but that is not the same as saying, and I'm going to work on making those changes and then doing things to actually make those changes for yourself, Olajuwon. Just because somebody acknowledges a behavior does not mean they will change that bad behavior. Realize that, sir. Okay. But Dr. Pepper asked him if decision day was today, what would he say? And he said he could not give an answer for that. But if she was to say no, then he would be hurt. And I'm like, well, I'm ready for him to be hurt. So Noe and Steve catch up, and Steve says that things went well. Noe asks if the things he talked about are the things they have already talked about, and Steve says it was a bit of a mix. He brings up the social media posts, and Noe has to ask which post, and I'm like, girl, you know which post he's talking about, or are you truly posting this much stuff that you can't keep track of which one may have been the subliminal message that you intended for Steve to see? Cut it out, Noe. He asks why it's so important to broadcast to the world that they have problems, and she said it wasn't about him. But as I said, Steve said people will assume it is about them, which they 100% will. And then she says she does feel that way sometimes from him. So she's talking about the whole post that she did say about, the minute you feel like you are owed more or something, you should, whatever the stupid post was. She said she does feel like that sometimes. I'm like, so then it was about Steve, Noe? Just maybe not this time, but sometimes it could be about him. I don't know what she's trying to say. So Noe tells him that she understands what he is saying, and she's like, Pastor Cal kind of said the same thing, but it's really my social media, so I can make those decisions. And, I respect everything that you're saying, but, it's still mine. And I'm like, her body language is completely starting to become defensive and argumentative, and she's clearly not here for him, basically him and Pastor Cal trying to check her on her social media. So next we see that Steve asks her what more does she deserve that he needs to do, and she says she needs a partner that can show that they are financially secure because she has worked so hard for everything. Same song and dance with Noe every conversation. She says she knows what she wants, and it's hard because she loves him, but he is so relaxed regarding the finances, and asks really how he's going to make her feel financially secure, because that's one of the questions Pastor Cal told her to ask. Steve says that they can have a conversation for him having a job or having the money, and he does want to give her that security. So he says that they will sit down and make a plan, but she says she needs to exactly know what this plan is before feeling secure. So now it is Mark's turn to sit with Pastor Cal and Lindsey meet with Dr. Pepper. And at this point, I was like, so I guess going forward, Dr. Pepper is just going to get the problem kids because they just going to leave it to her to try to check these people. Okay, got it. So Mark says he doesn't know which way to go with his marriage. So he's happy to talk to Pastor Cal in this moment. He talks about her delivery to him. And we see, of course, all the clips of Lindsey just mouth just having complete diarrhea of letting whatever she thinks just spew out of her mouth. And how she really just shoots first, asks questions later when it comes to her talking. Mark says that the way they argue reminds him of his parents fighting, specifically his mom, because she would just get frustrated so easily, and now that has become a trigger for him. As he talks about his mom, he gets very emotional with Pastor Cal, and Pastor Cal asks if he is afraid of being his father. And Mark, you can tell from the look on his face, and he says it, that he has not been asked this question before, so it really takes him aback and makes him kind of sit with himself of, am I really? Is that really kind of the core of the issue that I'm having right now? So Mark says really his father would kind of say nothing, and then his mother would just start arguing, and Pastor Cal tells him that Lindsey is not his mom, and he just needs and she just needs security, and really if he gives that to her, then she will calm down. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think this is just Lindsey's personality, Pastor Cal. And I so hate when Pastor Cal puts off to someone's partner of the things they need to do to then change or make the other person better. No, the other person should want to innately want to do better, because that is pleasing to them and that is pleasing to their spouse. But that should not be the responsibility of their spouse to calm down the other person all the time. No, this is a character flaw with Lindsey. She needs to work on that, because I'm sure she's not only like that with Mark. I'm sure she is like that with lots of other people in her life. So she needs to figure out how she can communicate better with people in general. Point blank, Pastor Cal. It's not just with Mark, and all the work does not need to be on him to know how to calm her down. Mark says he just wants them to be healthy. Pastor Cal says they can, and I ain't buying it. Lindsey then meets with Dr. Pepper in her horrible pink short pantsuit. Like, Lindsey cannot dress for the life of her, y'all. She says she is seeing a pattern with Mark and his inconsistency. Dr. Pepper tells her really not to forecast what's going to happen, because that's essentially what she does. She's like, I'm, kind of all in, and I will give you my all. And then once it's gone, it's gone. She wants him to really pour into her and not into everyone else first. So Dr. Pepper asks her how she can say that better, because if you say it that way, it's going to come off pretty defensive. Dr. Pepper tells Lindsey to ask him questions to get what she wants. And I'm like, I think sometimes with Mark, Lindsey feels like or wants to portray that she is the therapist. She knows exactly what's wrong with Mark, why Mark is acting this way, what's going on with Mark's life. And I'm like, child, you don't even have your own life together, and then really trying to dissect and reason as to what's going on with Mark and his issues. You need to peel all the way back, Lindsey. You are completely out of your job scope, honey. Okay. She says that she almost always feels sad all the time, and then she starts to cry, because of course that's what she does. But she says they just keep having bad things on top of another, and some of these bad things, of course, includes her relationship with her mom. She says her mom is quick to cut her down, and I'm thinking this really explains her behavior, because I feel like with her saying that when she blows up on people, I feel like it's her defense mechanism of, let me cut down on you before you get a chance to cut down on me like my mom does. So out the gate, she's going to go for the jugular to get her cut kind of out the way, so that maybe the person has no ammo left to then come back and cut her. Which, child, you need to go through some serious therapy with that, okay? Dr. Pepper tells her it's okay to be sad or angry, but she needs to bring in some softness to see the life that they can create together. She says they stand a good chance, but she has really shifted to be more negative, and it's going to be kind of hard for her to then shift back. Dr. Pepper tells her to ask Mark these 3 questions, which is, what is love now? Can he define an emotional connection? And can he walk away when things get heated? And I'm like, Lindsey needs to be asked these same exact questions, okay? I just think that based on both of their conversations with the experts, her and Mark really do not need to be in a marriage, let alone a relationship right now. They both need some intensive therapy, and that's like no tea, no shade, and I'm not trying to be funny. They both need some intensive therapy to deal with their childhood traumas, because I feel like they continue to bring those childhood traumas into relationships, which is not serving either of them well in this situation that they are in right now. So lastly, it is Jasmina and Michael's turn to meet with the experts, and Jasmina is meeting with Dr. Pepper and Michael with Pastor Cal. Michael tells Pastor Cal it's been a roller coaster for them, and Jasmina tells Dr. Pepper that, she's feeling good about how things are going. Pastor Cal asks Michael about how he feels now, and he says, he feels like previously, very early on in the marriage, he was doing a lot of things out of obligation because he is a husband and husbands should do these things. So I'm going to do them. But now he no longer feels like he's doing these things out of obligation, but he feels like he is doing it because he actually likes her. Pastor Cal kind of points out that, see, it does work. If you make the connection between doing the work, the feelings will definitely come eventually. Dr. Pepper asks, what worries Jasmina. She says she's worried that she doesn't know enough about his past. And I'm like, Jasmine, at this point, what do you want? Do you want to know how he was laying in his mother's womb? Whether he was pushed out or his mom had a cesarean, whether he was formula fed or breastfed. Like, how far back in his past do you want to go? Because this man has already broken down to you about all of the trauma that he's had in the past with all this death that he has had surrounding him. Like, what more do you want from him? Like, at this point, I need you to be very specific in what is it that you want him to talk about in regards to his past that he has not already shared with you, child. Like, girl. Dr. Pepper asks if she feels that he has given enough trust and support, and she says they are very different because with him, you really have to just earn trust, and with her, she's like, I just kind of just give my trust. And I kind of side-eye Jasmina, but if you say so, girl, I guess we gonna go ahead and believe it. Pastor Cal tells Michael that he thinks that Jasmina wants to have some sort of touch going on with him. And I completely disagree. I don't really think she has the urge or the want or the desire for him to touch her. He said that they used to kiss goodnight and then they stopped because they had a conversation about it. And Jasmina said that she felt like she was doing it out of obligation. And of course, Michael was like, well, I don't want you to feel like you're doing those things out of obligation. And Pastor Cal says that was a dumb move because of course, Michael's experience was I felt like I was doing things out of obligation and I just kept doing them. And then now that has shifted where I feel like I just want to do them because I like you. And Pastor Cal thinks that Jasmina maybe would have had that shift as well. But I digress. And again, I think this is a different situation because it's different of a husband just feels like he's supposed to, take out the trash, look at the cars, pick up the boxes, put up the groceries, like whatever he feels a husband's supposed to do is totally different than getting petty affection from somebody. Like somebody just wants to give you affection because they feel obligated. Like who really wants that, Pastor Cal? Cut it out. So Jasmina tells Dr. Pepper she's a sexual person, but she has to have the emotional connection. And Dr. Pepper talks about them touching more as well. She says she doesn't feel anything when Michael touches her. And when she said that, all I could say was, well, damn. Okay. And that's exactly why I felt when Pastor Cal said, if he touches her more, things will be good. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think she wants him to touch her. I just don't get that from Jasmina. But Dr. Pepper encourages them to have conversations next to each other or even holding hands because she's like, y'all are more than friends. And I'm like, on paper, yes, but how they interact, they are friends. Michael says he wants to know if they have enough time to build an emotional connection. And with only just about 2 weeks left, I'm not sure if it's enough time for Jasmina. Dr. Pepper tells Jasmina that you won't always feel like being physical with your partner, but giving some type of kind gestures is also helpful because that shows that you want some type of affection from him or you feel that you want him to give that to you. And again, I'm not buying it because all the stuff that this man did for your anniversary, you didn't give no kiss, no affectionate hug, no nothing to this man the whole time. So whatever, Jasmina. So we see Mark and Lindsey get back together and Mark worries that the cracks in their marriage will just get bigger. And basically when Lindsey is at home as he's telling her this and she's cutting up some chicken for them to have for dinner while simultaneously wiping her nose and going back to cutting the chicken. And I'm like, first of all, that's nasty. Second of all, where is the rest of the dinner? Why are y'all just having chicken? Are y'all on keto or something? What's happening? What is happening here? They recap their talk with the experts, and even as Mark talks about, what they talked about, he gets a little bit emotional. And while very early on and with everything that went on, I felt like Lindsey might have been a very genuine person. Now I don't feel so much. Like her just reaching out and just kind of barely touching him as he is having these emotions kind of come up. I'm like, that's not enough, because I feel like if he would have only given her that, she would have had a problem with that. And again, in this moment, because it's not about her, I think she's like, oh, woo, 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 woo. All right, now let's move on to address my needs, okay? Suck up the crying, buttercup, and let's move on to me. Me, 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 me. It's all about me. Anyway, Mark asks her, if she can speak to him empathetically, because yelling is really a trigger for him. And she says that, when she tries to explain herself, if she isn't heard, it just makes her feel invalued. And basically it just turns into a tit for tat situation. Like, you gonna go there, I'm gonna go here. You get loud, I'm gonna get louder. Like, I'm just gonna keep giving it to you until you tap out, because Lindsey ain't just clearly not gonna stop. Mark tells her that if he didn't see enough good in her, then he would not be there. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think you're just scared to leave her. She then tells us that he answered the 3 questions as best as he could, and it was exactly what she wanted to hear. And I'm like, of course you're satisfied, because again, it was what you wanted to hear. If it was not, you would have blown up yet again. So Jasmina and Michael meet up, and she's excited to see how his meeting went with Pastor Cal. He says the meeting went well, and he was able to talk about the progress they had made. Michael says he needs her to be more vulnerable, and she says she needs him to put in more effort for her to feel vulnerable. And I feel like, y'all, we have had this conversation 20 times with Jasmina and Michael. Like, this whole vulnerable, I am over it between the two of them. She says that she has seen the effort he has put it in, and she says she is being more vulnerable and she is not purposely holding back. And I'm just like, well, what is it that you've exactly shared, Jasmina? Because we don't really see much of anything on the camera. So if you are not holding back, what is it, honey? What are you exactly sharing with this man? Because we just don't see much coming from you. We see you talking to other people, but not talking to Michael. Oh no, I just lost my place, y'all. Okay, here we go. But she tells him that she has feelings for him, but they, really aren't physical there yet. But she says if she still has these feelings for him, even if they are not physical before decision day, she is cool with that because she know it will come. She says, again, she still wants all these deep, dark conversations from his past. And I'm just like, I don't know what more you want. I hope they get it figured out. He asks if there is enough time leading up to decision day. And she says, well, it could be enough time if we keep doing these things that we're doing. But if we don't, then it won't be. Well, thanks, Captain Obvious, Jasmina. We then see Steve and Noy sit down to discuss their financial plans, and it looks like he's basically planning out a budget and some goals. She thinks they should have, individual accounts and then one joint account, and Steve asks if she needs to see him working full-time to feel secure. She says she just needs to see a plan because she just hasn't seen anything. He says he isn't opposed to working a full-time position, but also if he would be okay with exploring other opportunities if he can make the same or more money. And I think that him saying that is completely fair. But again, we also need to see the Carfax, Steve. So if you were saying this, if you have, these contract side gigs, whatever it is, we need to see the black and white of it all and how that does match up to a full-time job to make sure you can support the family. Okay. But basically Noy's face just looks like, unless you're telling me you going to work a full-time job in somebody's office from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, I don't want to hear it. Like, that's what her face is giving me 1000%. So they talk about kids and then the time frame that they would like to have kids. Noy says within the next year, and Steve said he's comfortable with that. And of course that makes her smile because that means she's that much closer to getting her 3 kids. And I just give them an eye roll at this point. Okay. I do notice that once they wrap up all the couples, we did not get a recap from Olajuwon and Katina about how their talk went with the experts. And I'm just curious about why we didn't see that. But anyway, we gonna move on to the couples all meeting up together to play volleyball. And Noe tells us that she woke up with a headache, so she isn't going to go, and she's going to send Steve off by herself. And I'm like, Noe, you just don't want to be mixed in the drama of all of it, so you just gonna stay home and take a nap. So we then see Mark, Lindsey, Katina, and O are actually all riding together to the place, and I'm like, when did this situation happen between the four of them to actually be cordial enough to ride in the car together? Okay. But anyway, we see that Dr. Pepper and Pastor Cal are secretly watching them interact. So they go to like this indoor beach and they're playing volleyball. And Katina's out here, child, in an oversized hoodie and still with this wig on playing volleyball. And I'm like, girl, this ain't the time to be cute. Just let your hair down and girl, just relax. Just relax. So Katina, Michael, O, and Jasmina are on a team, and they basically lose against Steve, Mark, and Lindsey. After they get done playing, they sit down and talk and eat, and Steve gets the party started with asking how things are going. Michael says things are good, and they are working on having deeper conversations. Mark talks about their tough days and that, Mark talks about their tough days, and then they kind of get serious, and then Lindsey goes to start talking, and then she randomly points out this volleyball that is like stuck in the ceiling or something somewhere, and I'm just like, girl, that has nothing to do with nothing about what we're talking about right now. So she starts to cry then as she's kind of talking about what's going on, and Pastor Cal definitely says she starts to deflect conversations when things start to get a little bit serious, and she does. They then talk about Mark really needing to give her something because as she's talking, she's kind of reaching out to touch him or kind of leaning into him, and Mark isn't really feeling it. So I don't know if we just didn't see all the conversations that took place, but Mark really wasn't looking like he was in that space to really kind of be lovey-dovey with Lindsey, or maybe he was just tired from the volleyball game. I don't know, child. So Olajuwon ends up apologizing to the group for the dinner. Because the last time they were together, we noticed when he showed his behind. And he says that Dr. Pepper has some serious concerns about him belittling his wife. And he says that was all wrong. He then asks his wife if he belittles her, and she just laughs. And he's like, so this is the reaction I get from her. We think it's funny, it's comical. And I'm like, no, Katina is giving a nervous laugh because she knows she cannot be honest with you because you are going to blow up and act like a 3-year-old. So she just says, ha, 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 ha. Everything's fine, when everything is indeed not fine. And if you were more in tune with your wife, you would be able to tell that something is still wrong, Olajuwon. So he says that Dr. Pepper did not help him at all, and 90% of it was a waste because Dr. Pepper has no clue what's going on, and she really needs to stop bringing negative ish to him. And I'm like, well, you are negative, and I just can't believe how out of touch with reality this man actually is. Like, I feel like he kind of looks at Katina and thinks that Katina's agreeing with him. But in reality, she's kind of just sitting there looking at him and kind of unsure what to do in the moment. But he can't connect the dots because he's so full of himself. Like, I just don't get it. So as he's saying this, of course, the experts then come out. And I really want to see in this moment, Dr. Pepper really Will Smith Olajuwon right here on site. Okay. So Olajuwon is completely pissed when he sees Dr. Pepper. They sit down and go through the couples, and Dr. Pepper tells him that, in our lovely conversation that we have. So she's clearly throwing the shade at him. Okay. But she said she wanted O to clear up what was being shared. And she was like, this is being shared that the people watch you every day, i.e. the producers and the cameramen are the ones that are going back. And again, it's not hard. We can just go rewind the footage, Olajuwon, and watch exactly how you behaved and what you said. It's not like he said, she said, like you think it is. It is clearly what is coming out of your mouth and what we can go back and see come out of your mouth, sir. Okay. He says that maybe during the one-to-one session, it didn't come out right with Dr. Pepper talking to him, and they can't shape their relationship to make America happy. It's about them. And again, read the room, Olajuwon, because your wife does not look that happy standing beside you as you were talking about this and trying to be real defensive and like everybody's coming for you. It's a reason why everybody is looking at you crazy, sir. It is a reason. Pastor Cal says, she's exactly what he needs. And again, I hate it when he does this because that is putting the onus really on somebody else to help control the temper and attitude and emotions of another grown adult. We not doing that, Pastor Cal. We are not doing that today, sir. He says he's growing in love with Katina, but love is a deep word, and he is 100% committed. They move on to Lindsey and Mark and how their anger really comes from a place of sadness and explain, why it hurts and why they just kind of keep going back and forth. Again, Dr. Pepper challenges them to touch when they are upset so they still feel some type of connection and bond with each other. Pastor Cal said just to really give it some time to see really where Mark kind of starts to make some changes. And she said, but it's hard. And I'm like, but it's been like 6 weeks, girl. Like, only 6 weeks since you've known him in totality. Not 6 weeks since y'all have only been married, but 6 weeks since y'all been married and you have known him. Give it time, Lindsey. Give it time. You are a lot to deal with. So they then talk about Michael and Jasmina. And they said they cleared up a lot of things once they got home to talk after the experts, and they had a really productive conversation. And I will say, how the tables have turned, that they really are the best couple right now. Still don't think they're going to make it, but they're the best couple and it's the least amount of drama. Jasmina continues to talk about the lack of connection or foundation. And again, I am overhearing this from her because we've heard this from her since day one. So Pastor Cal tells them it won't be easy and none of them were put together by accident. And I'm like, yeah, they were all put together for the ratings of it all. So, tell us whatever you want to tell us. But that's basically how the episode wraps up. And next week we see the couples go on their retreat. And I basically think we're going to just continue to see more of the same. So while, some of them were in a good place today, next week they'll be arguing with each other yet again. And this vicious cycle is just going to continue, y'all. While this episode is good, I am still super exhausted about these couples in this show because it is just so much back and forth, and it's so much back and forth about the same thing. It's not like they're talking about something and then discussing it and coming to a resolution and then it's moving on and maybe it's a new issue that's reoccurring. It is the same issue over and over again. Michael and Jasmina, vulnerability. Olajuwon and Katina with him talking at her and just wanting her to cook. With Mark and Lindsey, just the being consistent and just all the yelling and the fussing. And then Steve and Noah with the whole financial issues. It is the same arguments over and over again, y'all. And I am just tired of it. Find a solution or a compromise and work towards that, or say no on decision day, or say no right now. That works too. Okay. All right, y'all, drop down in the comments. Let me know how you felt about this episode. How are you feeling about the couples now that we are getting closer and closer to decision day? What do you think is going to happen? I think none of them should stay together. And that's my final answer. Until then, I'll catch y'all next week. Peace.